Hello, my name is Jean and I'm visiting from the Minnesota Zoo. Today is Thursday, August 21st, and we are live here in the Star Studios for about another half an hour or so. So come on down and join us in the audience. Or you can give us a call right here in the studios because I have some amazing animal friends I can't wait for you to see. And the number just flashed on screen. It is 55020. I look forward to hearing from you because today is all about habitats. Habitats are all around us, and there are many different kinds of habitats. What is a habitat? Do you know? A habitat is a place that has all the things that we need to be able to survive. And if we think about and simplify that to 5 basic things, that would include food, water, air, shelter, and space. Those are all the things that you need to be able to have to survive, again, at that basic level. Now, can you think of different habitats? What kinds do you know of? Because today, we're going to be focusing on 3 habitats. We're going to look at the mountain habitats, wetlands, and we are going to lastly look at the desert habitat. Now, here in Minnesota where we are, those are not common habitats, not all of them. There are 3 terrestrial habitats that we have that maybe you're familiar with. There are forests. Up north, we have our coniferous forests. Coming down a little bit farther south, we have our temperate forests or deciduous forests. Think about the trees where the leaves fall off. Our coniferous refer to are trees that have the leaves that stay on all the time that look a lot like needles. And our last terrestrial one is going to be our grasslands, prairies. Have you heard of prairies before? We also have some freshwater aquatic habitats like rivers and lakes. So again, habitats are all around us. And in order to be able to survive and have those 5 basic things we talked about earlier, well, we need to have adaptations or things that help us to be able to survive. So as we talk about these habitats today and talk about the animals that I brought with, well, I want you to think about which habitat would they belong in. So if we look at our mountain habitat, mountains are typically identified by having, these structures that are above 1,900 feet up into the air. It's pretty high. And down below is what we call lush. Lots of green, lots of plants. But if we're talking up high, something becomes kind of barren. There aren't a lot of trees or plants and the animals start to disappear as the air gets a little bit thinner and it gets a little bit colder up there with a lot of sun. Now, that's one place that we're going to be thinking about today. Let's see, our second one is our wetland. A little bit different. They're going to have some water at some point of time in this habitat. It doesn't have to be all the time like a lake or a river. No. They need to have some water, and they're going to be identified with changings in the season. A lot of vegetation and animals live in wetlands. Now, if we look at our last one, the desert, that's going to be characterized by not the temperature we often think about, right? The first thing we think about deserts typically is going to be hot sand. The sand is correct, but there's also going to be some cliffs, some boulders, big rocks over there too. But it's about the lack of water, having less rainfall. Deserts will see about 19 inches or less. Here in Minnesota, we get about 32 inches of precipitation, so it's going to be snow, sleet, rain over a year, whereas a tropical rainforest might see about 120 inches to give you a range of what's happening out there in our world. And deserts are going to be hot some places or cold, but there is not going to be a lot of animals or plants that need to survive in these harsh climates. So that's a little bit about the habitats. Let's meet the animals and see if you can guess which habitat they belong in. All right, we are going to first meet my friend Nimbus. And Nimbus is a chinchilla. Let's see if she's wanting to come out today. Thank you. Here she is. This is Nimbus. Have you seen a chinchilla before? No, this is your first time. I'm so glad you get to meet her. What kind of other animal does she look like? A mouse, yes. A bigger version of a hamster, yes. She is going to be one similar to those animals. She is part of those rodent families. I just gave her a little treat. She has a little bit of an almond. But we're trying to figure out, where does Nimbus live? What is something that you notice about Nimbus right away? Nimbus is covering my microphone. I can't hear her. Because, what do you think she's covering it with? Her fur, yes. Can I ask one of you to help me out? Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger chinchilla by the toe. If she hollers, let her go. Eeny, miny, mo. All right, you're going to help me out. All right. I'm going to need you to put your finger out like I did. Perfect. And then I'm going to have a flip it around down so that, yep, there we go, mirror me. And you're going to close your eyes, because I'm going to bring Nimbus to you, and I want you to tell me when you feel like you are touching Nimbus. Can you do that? All right, keep your eyes closed. I'm going to get Nimbus in the position. All right. You feel it? Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. Look at that. How far are you in? That is pretty far. I think we've lost your finger inside of her fur, because she has one of the softest furs ever. All right, can you take 2 fingers out for me? And I'd like you to touch her down the back. How does she feel? Do you think she's soft? Softer than a cat or a dog? Yeah, she's super soft. So we've identified that she is really, really soft and fluffy. What does fur help animals to do? Keep warm. Yes. Do you think that fur keeps her warm? Yeah, it's covering all over her body. But now that you've touched her, I think she needs a bath. What do you think? Okay, let's get her into the bath that I have up front. Can you identify which is her bath up here? Yeah, it's right here. And hey, does that look like your bath? No, what's different about this bath? It looks like it's sand. Yes, very close. This is volcanic ash. She's not going to be taking a bath in water because of her fluffy fur, as well as there's not a lot of water available. So what she's going to do is she's going to roll, coating herself in that dust, getting rid of the oils and things that are on our hands. I was touching her and you were touching her too. So this is a great way to keep her nice and fluffy and clean. So she's got fur, and she cleans that fur using some dirt, sand, or dust in this particular case. She's letting me know she's done. Let's give her a treat. Today's treat is an almond. She is an herbivore. She would be eating a lot of grasses and leaves. She doesn't want her treat. She would be eating a lot of grasses and leaves out in her habitat. And have you noticed that I've kind of been keeping a close eye on her? Why do you think I am? She likes to run. You got it. She can jump about 8 feet straight into the air. And she just can turn the fastest. Think about like a skateboarder parkouring off the edge. She would jump up into the air, turn very quickly to escape her predators, animals that might want to eat her or harm her. And she's incredibly fast and has really great jumping legs. Her legs are like a kangaroo, very muscular and very big. Oh, she's showing off her legs right over there, right up into the air. And so that's why I'm keeping a close eye on her. And you felt that she's a lot of fur, so she can squeeze into some really tight places if she can't run away. Or maybe that's where she's running off to. So we've learned that she has some really thick fur. We've learned that she takes a bath in some dust, not in water. She also can jump really well and jump very high and to squeeze into small places. Which one of these do you think she lives in? Does Nimbus live in the mountains, the wetlands, or a desert? Give a vote for desert. Now remind me again, what did you touch on Nimbus? On fur. And what does fur do again? Keep them warm. Well, you're right that some deserts are really, really cold. Remember, it's about the lack of rain. But for Nimbus, that chill is going to come high up into the mountains. She's going to be found in the Andes Mountains in Chile. So she is a mountain animal. That fur keeps her warm as the temperatures could change about 50 degrees from sun up to sun down. It also allows her to be able to get away from predators with those big legs, jumping on the rocks from cliff to cliff, squeezing in between the rocks to escape. And with little water up in the mountains, except for maybe some snow that might come down, the dust is going to be the best way for Nimbus to be able to stay clean. She is thoroughly coated in that dust after having such a good bath. Let's see. Ooh. She's very dusty. How about a wave goodbye to Nimbus, our mountain chinchilla? All right. So we've met Nimbus, who lives in the Andes Mountains of Chile. Let's prepare for our next animal friend. And as we prepare, that might give you some clues to what habitat that animal lives in. I've got a very large bin over here, and inside of that bin we have some moss. Let's get that moss a little wet. Oh, that's a hint. We're adding a little bit of water to the moss. I think we can add some more. How about some plants? Does that look good? Let's add some plants to this habitat, because these animals would enjoy having plants around. There we go. How about some water? Let's add a pool for these animals. Think back to our list. Which one requires some water for the habitat? I think that's a very nice pool for our animal friends. And let's add a little house, someplace, right? Because shelter is one of those basic needs. Someplace that they could hide in if they wanted to. How's that for a habitat? It kind of reminds me of one of these other habitats up here. But if you know, don't say it out loud, because I am going to bring out my friends fava bean, lima bean, and pinto bean. Wonder who that could be. Here they are. These are American toads. They are found right here in Minnesota. We can find them in our own backyard and other habitats similar to that. And we call them the different names because of the little spots on their backs. Each toad has different spot pattern compared to each other. So this is pinto bean because he has about medium spots. They're not very large on his back. Let's put pinto bean in our newly made habitat. All right, who are we going to get out next? Ooh. I actually think pinto might be my small one. So I think that was actually fava bean. I think this one is pinto bean. Oof, are we getting a comfy spot? Good. All right, so this one's actually pinto bean. Yes, with the small spots, not the medium spots. And who could be left then? Put him inside of the water. Nope, he doesn't want to go for a swim. Understandable. And what fava bean or lima bean is showing right over here is he's buried himself inside of our cocoa husk right now. So I'm going to bring him out. That is something that they do to protect themselves or to camouflage and blend into their environment. Let's get him out. There he is. Here is lima bean. And where should we put lima bean? In the hut. All right, we'll just put them gently right by the hut. There we go. And we're going to give them a little bit of time in there. So our American toads, other than the spot patterns on their back, what's something that you notice about them? How are they different than our friend Nimbus the chinchilla? They don't have fur. That's right. They have skin. They don't have scales like our reptile friends, like turtles or lizards. They have a bumpy skin, which is why I had to be very careful and wet my hands with this special amphibian water before I picked them up. Because just like how Nimbus wasn't too thrilled with our oils and dirt on our hands, the toads prefer not to have those things on their bodies as well, because water transfers or goes across their skin. So can you show me, how do you take a drink of water? Yeah, we lift it to our mouths and we have a drink of water. I didn't see anyone pouring that water on top of their head. That's how they would drink. If they were thirsty, they wouldn't open their mouths in the water. They would just soak in and sit in the water. I think one of our friends is heading that direction. Maybe he's a little bit thirsty now that we've mentioned a drink of water. And they would just sit in there. So if water can pass through their skin, other things can as well. Things like soap, things like maybe antibacterial, right? They're good, clean things for us, but they are chemicals. They're not the snack that we want to have later on. Neither do the toads. So we want to make sure that they stay protected, and so with that water, I'm able to make a barrier with them. But it also means that having that wet skin, they can dry out really easy. So water is a really important part of where they live. What else do you notice about them? Like the chinchilla, how do they move around? They hop. I love that word, hop. Frogs are our jumpers. Their muscles are built for long jumps. These are hoppers. Their muscles are built for these short little bounces. And so they can move easily in the water as well as on land, because that's where their food might be. They like to eat bugs, a lot of insects, carnivores. They want to eat meat. Oh, I was hoping he was going to go into the water. So that's another great thing that we can take a look at. So they like to be in water. They have skin. They can hop. Now, what do baby toads look like? Do you know? That's a great guess. Often animals, yes, are smaller versions of us. Think about our babies. Our babies are smaller versions of us. Think about cats. Kittens are going to be a smaller version of the adult, but theirs looks very different. Have you heard of the word tadpole? They are tadpoles. They kind of look like a cross between a toad and a fish. They don't have any legs, and they have a pretty long tail. So he's going to then have to live in the water with that tail and go through metamorphosis. When that change happens, the tadpole grows legs, grows arms, and loses their tail and is able to come out of that water. Sounds again like water plays a really important part in the toads' lives. So what habitat do you think they live in? We've got to guess for wetlands. Any votes for mountain or desert? You're right, they live in the wetlands. They have to have water at some point in their lives, not just to keep their skin nice and moist. It is important for them to be able to grow and thrive and have a family. They need that water as tadpoles to be able to grow up into toads. And that hopping allows them to switch. Now again, they want to stay close to the water, but frogs are going to spend more time in the water compared to our toad friends. Are they still all three in there? Did we lose any? Nope, I think we have them all still here. You see one up front over here? Yes, one of our toads is still up front. Yes, one seems to be climbing over the plant right now. I wonder where he's headed. Maybe he wants to take a nap inside of the plant. Oh, did you see that? That was a really good hop. If that was a frog, he would have made it to the other side of the bin. All right, I'm gonna wet my hands again and move them back over into their car seat, how they traveled over here today. They did such a good job, and they stayed inside their bin. All right, let's pick up this one. A very large toad. They're only 1 year old, so we've been watching them get bigger and bigger. Their birthday was in June. Do you have any June birthdays in the crowd? You know someone with a June birthday? I understand. All right, I've got two. Here is our last one. There we go, almost. Oop. They are very, very, very jumpy today. There we go. Good job, toads. Let's make sure they stay safe inside of their car seat. How about a wave goodbye to the toads? Good job. All right, so I'm gonna clean up the toads bin really quick before I bring out our last animal friend. Because they are not gonna wanna enjoy a wetland habitat. But for Nyoka, she travels with her habitat all of the time. She needs to take it with her because it's where she likes to hide and how she likes to move. Here she is. What is that? It's sand. You got it. So where is Nyoka in the sand? Can one of you come over and help me see if you can find Nyoka? Where is she?
Under the sand, right there.
Yes. What are you looking at? What part of her body is that? It is her head. Can we be more specific? What do you think?
The nose head?
Her nose, yes. Good job. How did you find her so quickly?
Because there's no other like.
You're right. There are no other changes in color. Thank you so much, and go ahead and sit back down. Yes, so there is Nyoka right here in the corner. And we can just barely see her eyes, and we see her nose poking up right over there. You can see her nostrils. Those are the two bumps at the top over here. And she is buried inside of the sand. Think about like an alligator or a crocodile where they have their nose just above the surface of the water. And you can see here that we have tracks that she's made inside of the sand. A lot of curves that move with her body as she was burying herself. All right, I'm gonna go in and see if Nyoka wants to come out. Snakes don't have ears. They have the bones inside of their body, so it allows them to feel the vibrations. So this is the best way for me to be able to let her know that I am inside of the sand with her and I won't surprise or scare her. There she is, I've got her body. Let's see if we can bring out Nyoka. Nyoka is a sand boa constrictor. They are the smallest boa constrictors at about 18 to 26 inches long. And she looks a little bit different than other snakes that you may have seen before. For Nyoka, living in the sand has to have its own adaptations, those things to be able to survive. She has a very thick neck right over here, and that allows her to be able to push her head underneath the sand. Her eyes are not going to be located on the sides of their head. They're more closer towards the top of her head, allowing her to be able to poke her eyes above the sand, but not have her head fully lifted out. Would you like to help me with another demonstration? Can I come over to you? All right, I'm on my way because I'd like you to see how she feels. All right, with those 2 fingers again, I'll have you gently touch her on the back. You've held a snake before? Well, how does Nyoka feel? Scaly and a little bumpy. Is she hard or is she soft? She feels very soft. Is she wet or is she dry? Yeah, being inside of the sand, dry is a very good description for Nyoka. What I really want to point out though is those scales that you had mentioned. Her scales, are they big or are they small? They are. They're really, really small. How do you think having really small scales would help her when she lives in the sand?
They maybe don't catch as much. Not catch sand in the scales.
That is correct. You're right. So with these teeny tiny scales, teeny tiny grains of sand are not going to get caught in between each one of her scales. And it's going to make her feel a little bit more comfortable. So that's why she has such small scales. Now I'm going to have you touch the back of her tail. Very gently. Does that feel a little bit different?
Yeah.
How does it feel different than the rest of her scales?
They're more bumpy and a little hard.
Yes, they're harder and it's a bit more bumpy. Those scales are different in texture compared to the rest of her body. I wonder how that would help her. We'll leave that for a little bit later and something to think about. Some other adaptations that she has is, if you've noticed her inside of my hands, I've been supporting her body a lot. She is not holding on to me. Other snakes would be curled around my fingers or around my wrist to make sure that they don't fall. Since Nyoka is used to having the sand hang on to her, that's why she doesn't have the muscle tone that other snakes do, which makes her a little bit softer. So she has really small scales for the sand. She has a thick neck to help her bury herself in the sand. She has her eyes on top of her head to help her see above the sand. Do we have any guesses on which habitat Nyoka lives in? The desert. I think that's a great guess. Just like our friend the chinchilla, water isn't going to be the big part of her life. She needs it to be able to survive, but not quite as much. You remember that the desert has sand, and her desert certainly does all the way in northern Africa. That is where you're going to be able to find sand boas. So let's see if she can demonstrate how important having those bumpy scales is. Here she is using that thick neck to be able to push her underneath. And she's going to use gravity to be able to pull her body down underneath. But as she continues to go down, what's disappearing? Her body. So when we get to the end part where her tail is, there's not a lot of body left there or weight to help gravity pull her underneath. So that's where those bumpy scales are going to come into play. Those bumpy scales are going to grip and hold on to parts of the sand, and that's going to pull her underneath and to completely cover her and stay hidden or buried. A great way to hide from predators as well as the sun, something that this desert that she lives in has quite a bit of. So, what habitat do you live in? Do you live in the mountains? Do you live in the wetlands? Do you live in a desert? Or maybe it's one of those other habitats that we've talked about, or one that we haven't talked about just yet. Well, I can't wait for you to tell me what habitat you live in. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope you enjoyed meeting my animal friends, and we will see you next time.